Hi, everybody. This is Carolyn Speaks, State of Our World, on Tuesday, March 30th, 2021. So, what is it? Good, bad, or indifferent? Well, the coronavirus is still with us. We have over 500,000 fatalities from this virus due to the fact people refuse to wear a mask and refuse to practice social distancing and only socialize with those in their households, only go out when they have to. Basically, resisting. Now, uh, we have protests have erupted in Mexico demanding justice for Salvadoran refugee killed by police. Uh, Victoria Salazar, a 36-year-old Salvadoran mother of two, who'd been living in Mexico with a humanitarian visa. Four police officers from the coastal city of Tulum have been charged with femicide after an autopsy concluded Salazar's neck had been broken while she was being arrested. In videos published by Mexican media this weekend, one of the four officers is seen kneeling on Salazar's back. She's pinned against the pavement as she cries. Southern Salazar lies on the pavement, face down, handcuffed and unconscious, while three other officers watch. Eventually, they pick up Salazar's motionless body and put her in the back of a police vehicle before driving away. This is Salazar's mother, uh, Rosabel Ariaza, speaking from El Salvador. I feel indignation. I feel so powerless. Justice for my daughter. Wonderful place to be. Mexico. Someone comes from Salvador seeking refuge and does not get what they needed. But there were protests battling that. Same thing here. We're protesting the murder of George Floyd. Now, 60 child asylum seekers test positive COVID-19 in San Diego Convention Center. In California, over 60 unaccompanied migrant children being held at San Diego Convention Center have tested positive for COVID-19. The convention center is currently holding over 700 children, according to local media. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal is reporting Border Patrol facilities across the Texas-Mexico border are so overcrowded that border agents recently started holding hundreds of asylum seekers under a bridge near McAllen, where they were forced to sleep on the dirt. Border agents have also been dropping off hundreds of asylum seekers at bus stations and even hotels. This comes as a record number of asylum seekers are arriving to the southern border, fleeing extreme poverty, violence, and climate change in their home countries. Mainly El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, all due to American foreign policies and the way they react, the way they have been treating Latin America. All right, now that's not good, but that's the way it is. So they're not coming because President Biden is the president. They've always been coming here to seek a better life. Now, indigenous activists criminally charged in South Dakota over Keystone XL pipeline resistance. Well, in South Dakota, two indigenous activists face criminal charges over their roles in opposing construction of the Keystone XL pipeline, which President Biden halted on his first day in office. The pair are among a small number of water and land defenders who vowed to maintain an encampment in the Cheyenne River Indian Reservation near the pipeline route until all pipe infrastructure is removed. Jocelyn Charger faces up to a year in prison for an act of nonviolent civil disobedience, and Oscar Hayek faces up to 22 years in prison for what has his supporters say are trumped-up charges, including aggravated assault on law enforcement. This is Oscar Hayek's aunt speaking from the courthouse last week. The ability to bring charges against citizens has always been abused and overused when it comes to indigenous response to the protection of our relatives and their habitats and their drinking sources, which includes all four-legged, all two-legged, all plant life, all watersheds, and all indigenous unceded territories. So this is people are trying to protect their land on their assigned places, basically the reservations. They were forced to go there when they lost their lands. So they are protecting their resources, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, um, what else is happening? The crisis of capitalism. Roberto Lovato on how U.S. policies fuel migration and instability. We speak with Salvadoran uh, American journalist Roberto Lovato about how decades of U.S. military intervention in Central America have contributed to the ongoing humanitarian crisis at the border. Some 18,000 unaccompanied migrant children are now in U.S. custody, according to the latest figures, and more than 5,700 are in customs and border uh, are in customs and border protection facilities, which are not equipped to care for children. This comes as a record number of asylum seekers are arriving at the southern border, fleeing extreme poverty, violence, and climate change in their home countries. You have the ongoing epidemic of U.S. policy and the crisis that is not of migration as much as it's the crisis of capitalism backed by the kind of militarism and militarized policing that you see not just in the United States, but in Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, on and on. Lovato says, the border is the ultimate machete of memory. It cuts up our memory so that we forget 30 years of genocide, mass murder, U.S.-sponsored militarism, and policing, failed economic policies. And remember what I've mentioned in the past, there is a facility in Fort Benning, Georgia, called the School of the Americas, where the past, current, and future dictators of Latin America are trained. And the idea is for the U.S. to keep control of Latin America for their resources, and also to have like a foothold there, kind of like colonialism in a way, without actually going there, just controlling those governments. So that's what we're facing now, and it's not good. So now, we also have the ongoing trial of Derek Chauvin for his part in murdering George Floyd in Minneapolis this past summer. And the trial is now playing on TV or at the time it's live streamed. And Chauvin's defense blames George Floyd himself for his own death, not the police blood choke. So that's very sad that that's the way it is. And we just mentioned that before, the crisis of capitalism, Roberto Lovato, on how U.S. policies fuel migration and instability. So that is a real problem. Climate change is a problem because these countries in Latin America that are fueling the migration are Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, and due to the climate change, drought, they don't have crops. The land is not workable. So they're coming where they can find work. Like, in the 1930s in the U.S., we had a Dust Bowl, which in Oklahoma, and these people left Oklahoma and they went to California. They were not welcomed in California, even though they were Americans and they were white. But that's an ongoing problem. Woody Guthrie writes about that. So about that time period. So we'd have a lot of problems here, but they're not being solved by trying to keep people out and treating people purely. You have to wear that mask, practice social distancing, only go when you have to, and only socialize with those in your immediate household. And cooperate with health officials, obey the health guidelines. There's all kinds of terrible stuff. There are people who were so adamant against when we had the lockdowns to protect all of us that they even tried to kidnap the governor of Michigan. And they're being tried there. They've been in jail. They're indicted. And we have other people who came on January 6th, lots of them, to protest the fact that Trump lost. Thank goodness he lost, but that's where they are. And so, okay, now that's a lot of news, but that's the state of the world right now. So, how about a little music to wrap up? Let's see what we're going to sing tonight. He and I believe, are we singing Good Night, Irene? Irene, good night. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams. Last Saturday night I got married. Me and my wife settled down. Now me and my wife are parted to take another stroll downtown. Irene, good night. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams. Sometimes I live in the country. Sometimes I live in the town. Sometimes I have a great notion to jump into the river and drown. Irene, good night. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams. Stop rambling, stop your gambling. Stop staying out late at night. Go home to your wife and your family. Sit down by the fireside bright. Irene, good night. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams. Okay, time to wrap it up. Thank you for joining us this evening of Tuesday, March 31st, 2021, for March 30th, 2021, for a meeting of Carol Ann Speaks Sayreville World. Hopefully you'll be back with us again tomorrow. Stay safe and take care of yourself and others. And remember, take care of yourself and others. And remember, kindness goes a long way. Kindness goes a very long way. Thank you. Good night.